From our State House studio in Montgomery, I'm Todd Stacy. Welcome to Capitol Journal. Today was the 5th legislative day of the Alabama legislature's regular session, but also a busy day in committee as 13 different House and Senate committees met over the day. We'll hit the high points, starting with gambling legislation. The House Economic Development and Tourism Committee met this afternoon and voted to advance House Bills 151 and 152, the comprehensive gambling package sponsored by Representative Chris Blackshear. Before the vote, there was discussion among lawmakers about the enforcement and regulatory entity proposed in the bill.
There's 4 specific things that we detailed in this piece of legislation that a minimum that the Gaming Commission must consider when wanting to issue one of those temporary licenses to continue through 1/1/27. And it's on page, if you have the bill, page 5 of the Constitutional Amendment, line 118. Provision number 1 provides the names and addresses of its principal owners and investors, business records, and other information required by the Commission. There's three others, but I think Representative Treadaway, that's the one that would probably hit their home, the business records and also any other specific information that will be required. Page 5, line 118.
Okay, so you're telling me that would prevent these individuals that have been operating, that would prevent them from getting a...
So a lot of the ones, under my belief and opinion, that ones that you're such talking about that maybe potentially just pop back up thinking they may get a temporary license, probably be pretty difficult to, number one, would they want to divulge their principal owners and investors? Number one, questionable. But what business records would they have if they just started back up, say, February the 7th or February the 8th? So I think you would have some discretions around that. But again, the Commission will have the parameters to expand upon that as well. And just remember, any policies and procedures that are set by that Gaming Commission has to come back through the Legislative Council for approval as well, too, so things can be adjusted there as well.
Okay, we'll talk more about it. My position is that they don't even need to address it. These folks are running illegally. They're not running bingo. The Alabama Supreme Court has ruled they're illegal, and they should not be rewarded to continue illegal activities at any of these locations. So that's my position on that, but I appreciate your time on that. We'll follow up more because I want to hear more about it. My goal is to make sure that doesn't happen.
Absolutely. Understood.
The House could vote on that gambling package as soon as tomorrow. The Senate Education Budget Committee held a public hearing on Senate Bill 61, dubbed the CHOOSE Act. The bill, from State Senator Arthur Orr, would create education savings accounts, sometimes known as vouchers, to allow families a $7,000 tax credit to go toward tuition at an accredited private school. It would also allow a $2,000 tax credit for homeschool families. Senators heard arguments from proponents and opponents of the proposal, but no vote was taken on the bill.
The 2 main concerns were capping the ESA account, which starts at $100 million, but it can roll forward. How big will that pot be? And that was a concern of theirs, and I think we are going to be able to address that. The other was the triggering mechanism for any growth of the $100 million that we start off with. Should there not be a triggering mechanism before that number increases? And in principle, there was an agreement yesterday in my office.
So the idea is we're addressing public education and then also making sure that we've got the most school choice options at our disposal. This is also a bill that, as we get into it, you'll see balances the policy considerations of a host of stakeholders, those that are very vocally supportive of universal school choice, and then also those that want to make sure that we've got prudent policy, academic, and fiscal measures on here to make sure that this is in balance.
From a superintendent's perspective, the reason that that's so important is we are constantly being attacked on our academic performance. And so if we don't have a measure to say they publicly report, at least publicly report your scores, how do we compete? If competition breeds improvement, then we need to know that we're in a head-to-head, and what does that look like when we're making that comparison?
The House Ethics and Campaign Finance Committee met today to discuss a draft proposal to revamp the state's ethics code. We discussed this plan with Representative Matt Simpson last week on Capitol Journal. Ethics can be a thorny issue, and so members were careful to get clarity on a number of key points.
If you guys get briefed on this week, we're going to start taking comments from everybody. We've already received comments from a number of people, and we're going to make some changes to the draft before it's filed as a bill. The plan will be, if anybody's listening online or anybody in the room, if you guys have information that you want to see to fix the bill, anything you can do to make it better, please send it to me. This is a working draft. I've sat in a room with these people and Hoffman for hours on hours on hours. And sometimes if you're doing a report, sometimes you kind of get lost in the trees. So this is the opportunity for everybody to put more eyes on it.
In this particular draft, Simpson's draft, the civil and criminal jurisdiction is now separated. Okay, we have the Attorney General's office and local district attorneys handling criminal matters and the Ethics Commission handling civil matters. This draft refocuses the ethics laws and the Ethics Commission jurisdiction to deal with just the non-criminal standards of ethical conduct. Regarding the Ethics Commission, there's a few changes to the commissioners and to advisory opinions. We'll get into those in a few slides. Something that's not mentioned again in the rest of this overview is something I'll draw to your attention, and that is judges. Judges that are already covered under the judicial canon of ethics are now going to be covered by just the judicial canon of ethics under this draft. They would not fall under the ethics code in this draft.
The House Judiciary Committee had a full slate of bills to consider when they met today, and they advanced all of them with a favorable report. Here are some of the bills they reported out. House Bill 10 from Representative Chris Pringle, allowing law enforcement to charge those who cause death through fentanyl trafficking with manslaughter. House Bill 81 from Representative Alan Treadaway, making those convicted of sex crimes against children ineligible for parole. House Bill 42 from Representative Donna Givens, establishing the death penalty for those found guilty of human trafficking. House Bill 78 from Representative Philip Insler, creating the crime of swatting. That's making a false call to have law enforcement show up en masse at someone's house to cause a disturbance. And House Bill 29 from State Representative Chris England, which would allow certain inmates convicted under the state's habitual felony law to have their sentences reconsidered in line with the 2015 sentencing reforms. So yes, a busy day for Judge Hill and his committee, as always. Moving now to the Senate floor, where lawmakers debated and eventually passed Senate Bill 77 from Senator Chris Elliott. The bill would overhaul the governing structure of the Alabama Department of Archives and History by replacing the current self-perpetuating board with one appointed by the governor and legislative leaders. Elliott said it is to make the department more responsive after he was disappointed with their response to his questions about a brown bag lunch discussion on the history of gay and lesbian Alabamians last year.
LBGTQXYZ, the rights of them and the history of LBGTQ in this state, that's my understanding of it, that they came to talk to him, and it was a grant given by someone else, a third party outside came to this board. The board didn't institute that, they didn't initiate that, but we're ready to punish this board to the extent that we want to dig in on the self-perpetuating board instead of really dealing with the real issue here.
What's not relevant is who somebody had sex with last night. That doesn't matter. Doesn't matter for you, doesn't matter for me. What matters is what we do, what we contribute to society.
U.S. Senator Tommy Tuberville was in town today, speaking to the Montgomery Chamber of Commerce. He answered questions about his no vote on legislation funding the defense of Ukraine and Israel that recently passed the Senate.
I was totally against this Ukraine funding that we voted on. We stayed up all night the other night, then we voted like at 5:30 in the morning. And why was I against that? First of all, I've not voted for a dime to go to Ukraine. I see what's happening. It's like a junior high playing an NFL team in football. They can't win. So how do you handle that? You don't go to war. You don't get probably 500,000 people have been killed over there in this conflict in 2 years. You don't spend everybody's money. Somebody go negotiate our way out of this, but there's been no negotiation. And so they wanted to spend, they spent 120 billion to this point, and then they said, we need 60 billion more. Now, wait a minute. Why are we just gonna keep doubling up? Somebody go get us out of this mess, but nobody's willing to do it.
And that's the day that was here in the State House. Coming up after the break, I'll interview two of the newest members of the legislature, recently elected in special elections to fill vacancies, Representative Travis Hendrix of Birmingham and Representative Brinyark of Tuscaloosa County. Those interviews when we come back.
You can watch past episodes of Capital Journal online at video.aptv.org. Capital Journal episodes are also available on APTV's free mobile app. You can also connect with Capital Journal and link to past episodes on Capital Journal's Facebook page. And you can listen to past episodes of Capital Journal when you're driving or on the go with Capital Journal podcasts. Keep up with what's happening with Capital Journal.
Welcome back to Capital Journal. Joining me next is one of the newest members of the Alabama legislature, State Representative Travis Hendrix from Birmingham. Representative, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate the invite.
Well, like I said, one of the newest members of the legislature.
Yes, sir.
From the special election that was back in October, right?
Yes, sir.
District 56. So congratulations.
District 55, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, 55. Did I
55.
say it? Yeah. Okay, District 55 in Birmingham. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You know, welcome to the show that never ends.
Right,
So let me ask you, how's it been going so far?
So far, actually, it's been exciting. I would say a lot of working parts, a lot of moving around, different meetings, different conversations, but yes, I'm just trying to get my feet in the water, trying to get my feet working around and trying to understand the process, everything that's going on. But other than that, it's going pretty good.
Sure. Well, talk to me about what got you interested in running. This was a special election, obviously, to fill a vacant legislative seat. So, I mean, look, that's a choice to say, I'm going to sign up, I'm going to run. What got you to that decision?
So it's a story behind it. It started when I was a school resource officer at Birmingham City Schools. The school was Jackson Little High School. I was there maybe 4 years. But anyway, a fight broke out in the lunchroom. They asked for the school resource officer to come to the lunchroom real quick to, assist with the fight. So we get there. I get there. Once I get there, the fight is already broken up. But they wanted us to escort the students to the office. So in the midst of going to the office, I was having a conversation with this young man, and I can tell just by his aura that something was wrong. And I asked him, like, okay, why did you get the fight? Why did you get the fighting? So he was telling me that the other gentleman that he got the fight with was trying to take his food while he was in lunch. And I said, okay. And he said he'd take that food home to help feed his brothers and sisters. Wow. Because it's hard, for them back then, trying to get food within the house, because mom working, 4 jobs and single parent, home, and she was just trying to take care of the kids, and he was trying to do everything he can to help his mom out. So that started because once I dropped him off at home, getting permission from my supervisor to take him home because he didn't have a way home, mom was at work. Once we got to the house, it's very disturbing because as you get to the house, the windows was broken out, and then he actually had to go around to the back just to enter the home because the front door wasn't working properly. So once I got into the house, immediately saw they was just sleeping on mats on the floor, no living room furniture, no food in the refrigerator. So that moment then, it showed me like, look, I can understand what this young man was going through because I was raised in the projects myself. So I knew then that I told myself, if I ever get in a position to improve lives or the quality of life for anybody, especially the people where I'm from, where I came from, I was gonna do it. So that's what started it. So I started doing my research, started trying to see what I can do in terms of, from my perspective, my power, and as an officer, and possibly somewhere else. Looking at city councilman and stuff, realized I couldn't hold 2 city positions at the same time. So that's when the state legislature came abreast. So yeah.
Wow, that is a powerful story,
Yeah.
and I'm really glad that you shared that. You know, sometimes we think about what the legislature does and what any kind of government does in terms of votes, and does this bill pass or does that bill pass? But that's a
Right.
real world example of how
Right.
it is for some people, and why
Right.
what the legislature does is so important. So
Right.
yeah, thank you for. Well, I was going to ask you, what issues are important? Obviously, you shared kind of like that, but what other issues, maybe came up on the campaign trail and have come up since then, and now that the legislature's in session, that you're thinking, I could really attack those issues?
Well, issues that came up on the campaign trail, especially economic growth, especially in my district in itself. One particular area, Fairfield City has lost a lot of businesses within their community itself. So that's one important area that I would try to do everything in my power, man, to try to bring some more businesses back to that particular community, because they are hurt. Not just Fairfield, but just, District 55. When I say Ensley, West End, well, downtown Ensley, and then you got some areas on the south side as well that, businesses just taking their business somewhere else. But so economic growth is one of those things. Education is also a key component to mine. And education actually is critical to me, because a lot of people don't know, dropped out of high school my senior year because lost my grandma. I felt like, my life was over, because my grandmother, she was my legal guardian. So the only thing she wanted me to do and my brothers to do was to, graduate from high school. So when she passed away, I just felt like my life was over. There's no reason for me to continue to, go to school. But my high school principal, she came to my door and said, "Hey, Travis, get up. You need to go back to school, because your grandma only thing she wanted you to do is finish school." So I did. Got my credits, but I did not get my diploma. So after I was able to walk across stage, it was a high school program, educational program, adult learning program, educational program that helped me get my GED. And that's why I'm sitting here right now in front of you.
So it's fair to say that you're a proponent of such programs, and maybe funding and getting those programs, to more people, and maybe
Yes.
educating folks about the
Right.
availability of that kind of thing.
Right. Because it's important, because a lot of people, don't have access to, certain resources, and don't have access to, certain education components, because, just the resources is not there and the funding is not there. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, look, you've got a powerful story, and one that I'm really glad that you shared with our viewers. We're going to be watching you moving forward. I know it's kind of like, drinking from a fire hose right now.
Right, it is.
But trust me, it gets a lot easier. But thanks for coming on the show.
Yes, sir.
And we'll be following up with you
Yes, sir.
throughout your career.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
We'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capital Journal online anytime at Alabama Public Television's website, aptv.org. Click on the Online Video tab on the main page. You can also connect with Capital Journal and link to past episodes on Capital Journal's Facebook page.
Welcome back to Capital Journal. Joining me next is one of the newest members of the Alabama legislature, State Representative Bryan Brinyark from Tuscaloosa County. Representative, thanks for coming on the show.
Well, thank you. Thank you for asking.
And congratulations. As I said, one of the newest members of the legislature. You won a special election back in January, right?
Yes, the general election from the special election was in January. We had a primary that started in September, and then we had a runoff in October. So it has been 3 full-blown elections in the last, 4 or 5 months. It's been great.
Wow. And so that's District 16.
Yes.
The district formerly held by
Cal South.
Cal South, who got the West Alabama Chamber job. Talk to us about the nature of the district, the area that you represent now.
All right, the District 16 is a fantastic district, best district in the whole state. It is. It's all of Fayette County, northern Tuscaloosa County, the city of Brookwood in Tuscaloosa County, then it goes up into Jefferson County and gets that segment of West Jefferson County that goes from Concord, Rock Creek, North Johns, Oak Grove, all the way up to West Jefferson, and goes across I-22 by a couple of miles up at the top.
Okay, so fair to say small town Alabama.
Very small town or country folks. And they choose to be so. They're close enough to a big city to live there if they wanted to, but they choose to live out, and it's a good place.
Well, what got you involved? Well, again, a special election, that's a choice to run. What made you put your name in the hat for the legislature?
8 or 9 months ago, I never would have thought of doing this. It was not on my radar. I'm a lawyer for 31 years, municipal court judge for 23. I have five children that are now grown. They've all gone through the University of Alabama. And when Kyle announced, my phone started ringing, and my local sheriff that I'm friends with said, "Hey, this is your district. You need to do this." And then our local DA in Tuscaloosa County called me and really encouraged me, say, "Please tell me you're going to do this. This is your district. We need you." And I started talking to some people up in Fayette County, and I've got several clients that over the years I've represented up there and know a lot of the judges and lawyers up there and talked to them. And I really started hearing that I had a path. And so I talked with my children about it, prayed about it, and decided to do it. And it's the kind of thing that I'm at a point in my life and in my career that it made sense to do it. If I got it, I could do it. I had time to do it. If my children were smaller, there's no way I would ever dream of coming down and doing that. I was a coach and all that for 15 years, and it just, I shouldn't fuss about what they do down here if I'm not willing to come down here and try to help. And I have a skill set maybe that could help, so I didn't have a reason not to. I also thought if I didn't get it, I don't have to have it. So, there's no harm, no foul.
Nothing to lose.
That's right.
Well, that's an interesting way to put it. So what's it been like so far? Is it meeting your expectations, maybe things you didn't expect?
People say, "Did you learn a lot?" No. I've been exposed to a lot. I don't think I've learned anything yet, really, because I don't know if I can take it all in. It's truly water from a fire hose. As I've been people say, water through a fire hose? Yes, it is. It's a lot of information. It's a lot of things coming at me very quickly. I won the election on the night of January 9th, had to be down here the next morning at 10 o'clock for the Republican caucus meeting. So it was literally the next morning. Wow. They said, when the speaker called to congratulate me, he said, "By the way, you got to be down here in the morning." I'm like, "Oh, well, yes, sir, I will be there."
How about that? That's interesting. Well, what issues are you interested in? Well, maybe stuff that came up on the campaign trail or even since then that we can expect to hear about, from your, kind of issue platform.
Well, I ran against 5 other Republicans. There were 6 of us running in the primary, and all the big, national issues were discussed on the trail. We had 4 forums where we got on stage and took questions from either the internet that had been sent in before or from the crowd that night. And so we were all, and each one of us would have to answer each question. And with that many Republicans on the stage, we're all trying to out-Republican each other, and, you can't be too conservative and you can't be whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the very first forum, the first question was about gaming, gambling, lottery. Well, of course, that's coming down the pipe this time. And I said, I'm a Christian. I'm not a gambler. I don't gamble. I don't even buy the scratch-off cards when I go to Florida or whatever. But I think the people ought to have the right to vote on it. And, man, you would have thought that I had done, a bomb had gone off in the room. I had this guy running up to me with his phone, making sure I saw that he was recording me. And he said, "I don't understand what you're saying. You're saying that you're against it, but you're for it." And I said, "No, I'm personally against it, but I'm not running for dictator. I'm running for representative. And I think the people ought to have the right to vote. If I'm asking them to trust me, for me to trust them to vote for me, then why wouldn't I trust them to vote on that issue?" And everybody else ran far right. They were like, "Nope, I'm a Republican, I'm a Christian, I'm against gambling, no gambling, no gambling. It comes with crime, comes with corruption." And I said, "Well, then vote against it when it gets to gets to you, if it gets to you." But I maintain that, and people would be at the bottom of the stairs every time saying, "You just got my vote. That's exactly where I am. That's exactly where you ought to be." And so I ran for that for the last 8 or 9 months. And I don't know if you saw it, but I did an op-ed a couple of weeks ago. And it was on that issue, just that was the distinguishing thing in my race. And that was what at least the people in my district seemed to want overwhelmingly.
Well, yeah, you're right. That is a huge issue, and might not find one more divisive than that one, because very, very strongly held opinions on both sides. We've been covering it, and we'll continue to cover it as we go forward. Well, look, we're out of time, but I want to say thank you for coming on the show. Welcome, to this crazy show we call the Legislature, and we'll be following your career going forward.
Thank you very much.
All right. We'll be right back.
The USS Alabama is a World War II-era battleship that first served in the Atlantic Theater, but was better known for helping to take Japanese-held islands in the Pacific between 1943 and 1945. During the Battle of the Philippine Sea, the Alabama's state-of-the-art radar alerted the fleet to incoming aircraft, providing the Americans enough time to scramble fighters and decimate the attacking force. Later, the Alabama served during the Battle of Leyte Gulf and anchored in Tokyo Bay to unload Allied occupation forces. In 1964, the state of Alabama took possession of the battleship. Alabama schoolchildren raised $100,000 in nickels and dimes to help bring the ship to Mobile and create Battleship Memorial Park. The park features the Alabama, the World War II-era submarine USS Drum, and an American military aircraft collection. Battleship Memorial Park is one of the state's most visited attractions.
That's our show for tonight. Thanks for watching. A quick programming note on a show that you won't want to miss. Defending Freedom, a new documentary on the life and legacy of Arthur D. Shores, airs tomorrow night here on APT. Shores, as you may know, was a civil rights trailblazer and the first African-American trial attorney in Alabama. So that documentary airs tomorrow night at 8 o'clock here on APT. And we'll be back on the air tomorrow night at 10:30 with more coverage of the Alabama legislature. For our Capitol Journal team, I'm Todd Stacy. We'll see you next time.